Hello, I'm Kelly, one of the librarians at the Sacred Heart University Library. In this video, we'll talk about forming a research question. The first step in your research project is turning a general topic that you find interesting into a specific question that you can research. So why do we start with a question and not a statement? A thesis statement means you've already decided on what you believe. A research question keeps you open to discovery. Typically, we make our thesis statement after we have evidence to support a line of thinking. So for example, student loan debt is holding Gen Z back is a statement. You've already decided how something, student loan debt in this case, is affecting a group, Gen Z, before you have any evidence, before you've done any research. Now, how does student loan debt affect the career choices of recent college graduates is a question. Now you're curious and open to learning something you don't know the answer to. Even if an answer might seem obvious, starting with a question presents us with evidence and arguments we might not have originally considered if we jumped to a conclusion and wrote the thesis statement before we started our research. Research isn't a straight road. Think of it as a walk down a winding trail. As you search, you'll observe, you'll take detours, you might see some articles you wouldn't have originally read or considered, and you might end up in unexpected destinations. Your research might take you to conclusions that you wouldn't have thought you'd end up at. We want our curiosity to be our guide as we journey through our research. Follow it wherever it takes you. Start with a question you want to know the answer to and see where you end up. Keep in mind that when you research, you're also entering a scholarly conversation that's already in progress. If you saw two people talking with each other, you wouldn't enter that conversation without listening first. It's the same with research. You start learning what researchers already know on your topic and where they disagree. From there, you can decide how you want to contribute to the scholarly conversation. The best way to do this is by asking lots of questions. Ask yourself lots of questions that you can research. Ask what you're reading lots of questions. Probe it for answers. Now, once we start researching, how do we refine our question? We need a question that's not too broad and not too narrow. We'll call this the Goldilocks principle because much like this fairy tale character from Goldilocks and the Three Bears, we're looking for a research question that's just right. For example, let's say you wanted to do a research project on something related to the environment. Now, what is the impact of climate change is too broad. It's such a big topic, you probably would need to write an entire book to address it. How did the 2019 Australian wildfires affect the nesting habits of one specific bird species is too narrow. This is so specific, you might struggle to find enough scholarly sources to build an argument, especially if no scientist is doing this type of research. We typically call this a gap in the literature. There are some questions that are waiting to be studied, and while important, we don't want to choose them for this assignment. How is climate change affecting coastal housing prices in Miami-Dade County is just right. It's specific enough to answer your assignment without writing an entire book, but broad enough to find multiple perspectives. As you refine your search, avoid choosing one that is too personal. While it's good to let curiosity guide your research, a question like, why do I always procrastinate, is about your own habits, not a general research topic. You want your question to connect to a larger social or scientific conversation. For example, a student in a sorority might ask, how do sororities contribute to community engagement in college towns, rather than why do I love being in a sorority? Also, watch out for confirmation bias. Don't search for sources that support what you already believe. This goes back to what we were talking about before, where we don't pick a thesis statement before we come up with a research question, right? We don't want a statement based on things that we think about a subject without being informed. That's how confirmation bias comes in. So for example, how does remote work decrease employee productivity is a biased question, because it assumes that remote work has a negative impact on productivity right in the sentence, right? I'm asking, how does remote work decrease employee productivity? But I don't know that it decreases employee productivity. I don't have any evidence for that. It might increase it. A less biased question would be, how does remote work affect employee productivity? This question asks what the effect is rather than implying the outcome. This question allows us to see multiple viewpoints that might change our mind about a topic rather than confirming what we already believe. Remember, we want to be curious while we do our research. Finally, We want to avoid topics that only lead to opinion pieces, like is pineapple on pizza good? You can confirm if something is an opinion piece by looking for opinion in the header. Here's an example. I'm on the New York Times website. You can see very clearly up here, it's labeled opinion. Opinion pieces lack scholarly or empirical literature that you would need for an academic paper. Now here on the library website, this is the library quick search. You'll learn more about this again in the next video. But before you commit to any research question, do a quick preliminary search to make sure there's enough information out there. Let's say you're interested in doing a paper about puffins. You could focus on their diet or habitat, but maybe you learn while you're searching and you're reading articles about puffins that they're some of the only birds that use tools. Your research question then gets narrower from puffins in general to puffins and tools. So now remember, it's normal for your research question to change as you search. That's why it's called a process. If your search sends you in a new direction, follow it. You might find a more interesting question than what you started with. If you ever feel like you need assistance, then please reach out to your librarians. And you can do that easily through the library website. You can either book an appointment with a librarian, email us at the reference desk with any questions, or visit us in person at the Ryan Mature Library on the main campus. We are always here to help. Thank you so much for watching.